Welcome to the Spiritual and Cosmic Podcast of Lady D, the podcast where the mystical meets every day. I'm your host, Lady D, psychic, medium, astrologer, spiritual guide, and cosmic truth teller. Each week we'll dive into real talk about living in a spiritual life in a human world. The good, the bad, the beautiful, the messy, and in between. From psychic insights, astrology breakdowns, to soulful chats and cosmic truths. This is your sacred space to awaken, expand, and keep it 100% real. So grab your crystals, open your heart, and let's get spiritual and cosmic. Welcome back to Spiritual and Cosmic with Lady D. Today's episode is a very personal and honest conversation about the stereotypes surrounding psychic, mediums, and intuitive people. In today's episode, we're going to explore the misconceptions surrounding intuition, mediumship, and spirituality, and talk about what psychic work truly means from my own personal experience. As a psychic medium, one of the things I struggle with the most is the judgment and misunderstanding that can come along with this work. Why are psychics so often labeled as witches? Why do people fear spiritual gifts? And the social media turns spirituality into more than like authentic or all this witchy stuff than a genuine personal connection. So what I thought of this topic is, number one, I actually hate being called a witch. I really don't like it. And when people call me a witch, I always say, I'm not a witch. That's the first thing I say. I used to work with someone who used to call me a good witch, and that I used to work with this person. I used to let that sort of slip, and I didn't mind that so much, and it was all playful and fun. But I really, really don't like it because I'm not a witch. I'm not casting spells. I'm not doing magic tricks. I am a psychic medium. I've just learned to heighten my intuition so I can have clear communication with my guides and also people who have passed over, whether it be cats or people. That's really it. And I follow the astrology as well. I follow the planets. So what brought me to this idea of this podcast is recently I came across, it was on Facebook, the social media post from a crystal shop. And it was showcasing like cauldrons and witchy stuff. And I was like, oh, I wonder what that's about. Like they're selling witches stuff. And usually, and you do see that, like when you go into crystal shops, you will see they have cauldrons and other like witchy things. And I'm always like, oh God, okay, whatever. And it goes into that stereotype where people just assume or they think that when you're a psychic medium, you must be a witch. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I wonder what that post is about. And then I started to read the post, and basically it was saying things like, I don't know word for word, but basically it was saying that they had everything you need to begin your spiritual journey. And then I was like, that's not spiritual. So being a witch and spiritual, or being a psychic medium, being heightening your intuition, are two separate things. It's just not the same. And I think having these things, it just really adds that stereotype to people that, we're witches when we're not. And it doesn't help the stigma that comes with it either. And for some people, it can make them feel like scared of it, or of people like myself, or be judgmental as well, think that we're strange or or there's something dark about what we do. And yeah, it can be scared of people. And it started making me thinking, where did this all begin? Because, back when you go into pagan times, you'd have the pagan king or queen, and they would have their personal seer, or, it'd be oracle. And they would have this person there, and they would use astrology, and they would follow the seasons, and, there'd be mediums as well. So I'd talk to people who have passed over. They'd use different tools and herbs, and they would be able to, some of them were healers, some using the different herbs and different rituals they would know from all different formulas from herbs and things like that. And then some of them would also follow the stars, the astrology too, and they'd be able to tell them the future. So, but they weren't called witches. They were called seers or healers, astrologers, shamans, or they were even called oracles. And they were very well respected, in the little town villages and the communities. And people believed that, these people had these connections to nature, and they used nature as well. So where I feel like things have gone mixed up, from doing my little bit of research that I had done on the topic. So when Christianity came in and started to spread across Europe, many of the old pagans' practices began to, as I said, would threaten the Christians. So then the Christians would start to say that, these things are not good, and they would bring all these things that the seers and the oracles would do, and they would see it as a bad, and they would spread it across. And I think and they would call, I don't know where the witches thing got mixed in, but they were basically as a threat to Christianity. So, and then when we got to, so before Christianity, even like when you go into places into Egypt too, they had their own way of doing things. And even like in the Greeks were the big astrologers. So we had all these things. And then I think what really took over the whole witch thing was with the witch hunts. So back in the 1400s and the 1600s, with the witch hunts, they exploded across Europe, okay, and later colonial America also. So they would also feel like if something went wrong and an old woman that was a bit like haggard looking, they would blame them, because it was easier to blame them than to actually admit that the person maybe did something wrong. And that person, they'd have these ridiculous trials and the women would get burnt. And it was also mostly pointed to women as well. So, and then we have the TV to blame with it too, when TV, they put witches and they have spells, but now it gets taken off, and it's part of that old way of being of that Neptune in Pisces too, because Neptune in Pisces, it is bringing up all the witchy stuff, and so it's been heightened the last few years or more. It's been heightened, and even when I worked with other mediums and other psychics, they embrace that whole witch thing. They say that they're witches, and it's like, you're not. We're not witches. It really irks me, and I really hate being labeled or being called a witch. You don't know how much I dislike it, because I really don't like it. And I just think that, and people will think you're odd and weird when you're not. Like, I've simply have learnt to master or heighten my intuition so that I can connect to my guides. I think what it comes down to is people been laboring because, when you go into or you research the pagan rituals, it was, yes, some of them, weren't great, like any religion, but it was very peaceful. And I think when something else comes and take over, they want to label as bad, certain practices as bad. And that's where it also comes into it as well. It's not good. And we always label like witches as being bad, and it's a bit edgy, and it can be cool as well, because we're part of, sometimes when people, they have their groups and they're part of a circle and they do these things. I get that. It's part of communities as well. I get that. But it's not helping the cause. You're not helping where people who are not educated or who haven't really know what they're talking about are labeling us being weirdos. And it's really really odd. And I really, really don't like it. And I do know that a big part is religion, and about control, and about what's good and what's bad. And now we are more open with things, but we just see it a lot. And it goes into the whole curse thing too, where people believe in that people can put a curse on you. Like I've had this past few weeks, I've had people call me up and inquire about my services, and will say, I've been cursed, or talk about curses and all these things. And as I've said before on other podcasts, and I said to these people, we all have a soul contract. We're all bonded by that, and we're human. And no human has the right or has the power to be able to change your contract. You come here with a binding contract, so they can't change that. So all these things that get misconstrued, these things, and social media, I think, are to blame, and the movies and the TV are to blame as well. I remember the movie The Craft when I was growing up. It was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I liked the movie. But and then but when I think of witches, I think of someone who's casting spells, who, yeah, I mean, they may do the whole, like they've got practical magic movies coming out soon. I love that movie as well. But again, those things are about casting spells to make things happen. I'm not casting a spell to connect with your loved ones. I am connecting with my guides to a higher source, and I'm asking to connect to your loved ones. I'm connecting to them from the other side. I'm not casting any spells. I don't have a cauldron. In fact, I don't even own a cauldron. So to me, a witch is someone who's, maybe they are dancing in the moonlight. I don't know, but they are trying to, I'm going to use the word manifest, which I don't believe in. They're trying to cast some kind of spell to make things happen or to attack someone, um, to make things happen. So it's like that manifesting. That's what a witch is to me. Like, you look at the Wizard of Oz. The witches in that movie are not there. And even you're looking at things like Bewitch, that TV show. I love that TV show too, by the way. But when you think of like Bewitch, Wicked, the movies, Practical Magic, even the movie The Witches, those people, they are not talking to spirits. They are not predicting future. They are not using astrology. They are using spells to make things happen. The movie Witches, they want to turn all the children into mouse so they can get rid of the children because they don't like them. Practical magic, they're casting the spell to try and fix their problem. In the craft, they're casting spells to try and change their life. You look at all these things, and for some stupid reason, people who I'm going to say they're not smart have this. It's not assumption, and I don't know where it's coming from. And again, I think it does go back, especially if they're very religious, to whatever they've been told or whatever that it's this misconception, and that's just not what I am, and it doesn't make it. So sometimes you'll go into a fair and you'll see a psychic medium there or a card reader, whatever, and they're dressed up like a witch. So it doesn't help. It doesn't help when there's spiritual people in the industry dressing up like witches. They're embracing it. I get that they're embracing it, and some of them think that they are witches. Good on them. It's not me, and it's just, it annoys me. It really, really annoys me, and I think that um, we, and in terms of like with healers, like I am into more natural therapies than I am into, like, oh, if I need to go see a doctor, I will see a doctor. It's only when I really need to. Otherwise, I won't be at a doctor. My personal belief, this is just my belief, is that I've just had better effects or better things happen with my health when I've gone to natural therapies. It has helped me better since with my issues that I've had. And as I said, if I need to go to doctor, I will go, but I'll also do some research. I also use my intuition too. So, and I do know about different herbs for different things, different creams. So, but again, I'm not casting any spells or anything. I think, natural can be a better way to deal with certain illnesses. Like for even the common cold, the flu, I can't have cordial with the ingredients that's in cordial. It affects me and it makes me feel worse than it does better. So I use a different tablet that you get from Coles. Actually, you get it from Coles. It's herbal, and it works a treat for me. It's just for my body. So again, I'm doing these things. I know about different herbs, and I use them if I need them. But again, I'm not casting any spells. Even I'm doing Reiki, I'm asking for, I always ask when I'm doing Reiki, I ask for the healing angels, the healing guides, the Reiki masters to come forward and allow the healing energy to come through to the person I'm doing Reiki on. So I'm connecting, I'm asking, and it's happening. I'm not changing people's lives by doing it. I'm not casting any spells. I'm not manifesting anything. I'm trying to help the person that I'm treating. Okay, so that's my intent. I mean, like even in the past, where people would go to the midwives, they were cast as witches. And I think that part of that authentic look with the pointy hat and the old lady was back in the witch trials, and back when people would fall over and they'd have black cat with them, and it just these things, these assumptions, and it's kind of has just stuck with over the years. And I just, as I said before, I'm keep on saying it, I know, but I think at some point something needs to change, and I think it will change because of the whole Neptune in Aries. I think the stigma, I think the thing would change, but it's also education. So, people who are listening to this podcast know that a psychic medium is not a witch. They are two different things. A true witch, I don't fully believe exists. Again, people aren't magic. We can't manifest things. If the people who say that they're manifesting their life and blah, 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 look at their life. Are they a millionaire? No, they are not. The millionaires, the most richest people in the world, did not manifest that money coming in. So look at that. And just know that, they're two different things. And I think the spiritual shops should be like, maybe have a section. If you want a section for witches, fine, have a section for that. But don't then advertise and say, we have all the tools you need for to start your intuition journey to being a psychic medium, because we don't need the cauldrons. We don't need the cauldrons. We don't need a spell book. We don't need, like you might, where you sage to maybe just clear the energy. But that's all it is, it's clearing energy. Okay. Sorry, going on my bit of a rant today, but anyway, I thought it would be good to explore that, and again, just educating people that witches and astrologers, psychic mediums are two very different things. As I said, back in pagan times, they weren't called witches; they were called seers, healers. They're different things, and even back then, they weren't changing anything. They were not trying to make their pagan king. I mean, they might have given him something, but they gave him healing, things for healing. They weren't manifesting anything. They were tapping into, and I think it was a greater understanding back then. It's been tainted just with everything, religion, TV, and people have just given it full blown. Really, they have. Anyway, that's my rant for today. So, it's very interesting just to see, but let's have a look. But okay, so we'll wrap it up now. So thank you so much for joining me for this deeply personal episode of Spiritual Cosmic with Lady D. Whether you believe in psychic mediums' abilities or not, or think it's important that we create space for understanding rather than fear and judgment, intuition, something many people experience naturally, even if they don't realize it. Spirituality doesn't have to look a certain way, and psychic development isn't about fitting into the stereotypes or, looking into the archetypes either that we see online. It's at its core, it's about connection, awareness, healing, understanding ourselves on a deeper level. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it, leave a review, or connect with me online. Until next time, trust your intuition, stay open-minded, and keep exploring the spiritual and cosmic within you. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll see you for my next one.